Thank you for joining today's session. As usual, we will begin with a quick mind relaxation. So let's sit back and relax. And leave all the burdens, worries, stress, anything, any weight that we are carrying, the weight of our thoughts. For just a few minutes, let's just leave that aside. And let's go into that time, because mind likes to travel in time. So let's take the mind to a moment in our life where we were very happy, very content. It could be a phase of our life or a particular moment. Let's just enjoy that moment. It is very easy to anchor or position our mind wherever we want. And this is the technique we use when our mind is stuck in some kind of a loop of negative energy or negative thinking, or is under some kind of weight. We trick the mind to steer or re anchor it into a much positive moment. At least we try. This technique may not work when the mind is stuck in a loop of the same kind of thoughts over and over again. But this technique does work when we are under stress, deadline, pressures, anxiety. So let's quickly detect and observe whenever we go into that state of mind. Try to steer it into a much positive moment. So we are in an experience of much positive energy, even if that's briefly experienced. So let's take a deep breath once again. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And start with a fresh mind for today's session. Thank you, and we'll hand it over to our speaker today, Brother Prashant. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Raki, for sharing a wonderful meditation technique with all of us. So, hi everyone. You can let me know on chat if I'm properly audible. Do a +1 yes or anything. Just let me know. Okay, fine. So I hope everybody of you is doing good. Welcome to the session. So before starting off with the session, I would want to introduce myself. I am Prashant, and I will be taking today's session on Python, wherein we would be targeting how Python is helpful in data analysis and data manipulation using one of the libraries, which is known as Pandas. And Pandas is the top famous library across the world for data analysis. It has a lot of potential to help anybody who wants to basically process huge amount of data that is stored in CSVs or Excel sheets or maybe in databases. So we'll take a look at all those functionalities today. So I would keep the session very basic today because data manipulation and data analysis is something that we should always start from fundamentals. Then only I believe everybody will be able to catch up and like move towards the advanced areas going further. So I hope you'll be excited to see what comes across today in Pandas and how you can basically take that experience going further to basically develop your own projects or basically do some kind of value additional contribution within your organizations. But before that, may I know how many of you are IT professionals or how many of you are students? If you're IT professional, you can mention IT in chat. Otherwise, you can mention student or whatever you are into. Can we take a quick, okay, and others, please do mention of you as well. Okay, thanks for sharing Rashmi and Mayank, Gopal as well. And what about others? Please do mention if you're a student, you can mention student. Okay, cool, and Anita. So we are close to 20 participants. I want to see from each and every one of us so that we are able to cater the session accordingly as per your requirements, as per your understanding level. That would help me basically understand your background, overall readiness of our attendees today. And accordingly, I would try to expedite or speed up myself to ensure that everybody is grabbing what I'm conveying today. So without taking any further time, so thank you all for sharing, although not everybody of you has shared. So let me check if anybody is from mobile. So I see some of the folks have joined from mobile. It would have been better if you could have joined from laptop because today's session you'll be looking at some of the codes and the execution and then how that is leading to some output. So that would be more convenient on laptop. But still, if you are not in a convenient position or situation, then uh, continue with your mobile. But yeah, you'll have to focus more. So I'll quickly get started now. I will share my screen. I have prepared a presentation which I would want to start with. So just allow me a minute. Let me know once you are able to see my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Now I may not be able to look at the chat box. Okay, I got it. You are able to see my screen. So I've prepared this presentation through which I would want to explain you some of the fundamentals. But I am not before that, let me tell you all that I am not uh, a kind of a true Python developer. I have learned Python myself within over a period of time, solving my use cases in my organization, which require data analysis. And I am not a, a person who knows Python from basics. I've started learning Python. I picked up the libraries and started experimenting around that because I, being an IT professional, I don't get that time to start learning something from scratch. But and we don't have that time in today's generation as well, wherein we have to learn specific items which will help us solve our use cases and problem requirements. So although learning fundamental is always good, you will get a good hold on to the Python and will be clearly able to understand what comes ahead. But I have not been in a situation in like that. But still, let me explain you what all I have learned and how that may be helpful for you. So let's start with pandas. So like what is pandas and how pandas is useful. So we'll take a quick overview through these PPTs and we'll look at the practical aspects of all of these that we are going to review in the PPT. So don't worry that we are only looking at the PPT and not doing any practical. That is not the case. We will definitely be doing that. So what is pandas? Pandas is just like any other library that Python offers. So in the previous sessions, you might have seen Anurag explaining you around various libraries like Turtle, and then there is other libraries like Math. So similarly, Pandas is a very advanced library which basically helps you analyze the bulk amount of data. So what kind of data it helps you analyze? So for example, if you have a lot of data in column and row format, in CSV formats, in Excel sheets, or maybe you are having a lot of data in your database format, which is SQL format, then with the help of pandas, you can basically process that huge amount of data and analyze the meaningful insights out of it. So for example, let's say I am running a e-commerce store. Okay. And there are significant amount of purchases happening on weekly or monthly basis. Now, at the end of that particular month, I want to analyze the meaningful data, how many spend came from which category, how much spend did my electronics department have, like what was the age group of the people who bought these electronics items, what is the trends, what is the meaningful trends that I can identify from that particular huge amount of data, because manual analysis of data can take huge time, which these libraries can basically help you minimize. You can basically use pandas for filtering, indexing, just like what you can do manually in Excel. You can do much more with pandas, because doing anything using user interface and on a manual level may require a lot of movement, like efforts, but then doing that programmatically can be done within a fraction of seconds, the same steps. It can help you with grouping and aggregation of data, merging and joining data sets, and it can also help you visualize your data. For example, you want to see visual graphs, graphical data for the trends that must have happened. Just allow me a minute. Yeah, sure. So I'm back. Sorry about that. So it can even help you visualize your data in graphical formats using Excel charts, and you will be able to basically represent the important data in graphical format using pie charts, bar charts, stack chart, column chart, all that you can use in pandas. So it is simply an Excel that you are using in a programmatically manner without using the Excel directly. You can understand in that manner as well. Now moving forward, so what is data loading? Data loading is that you, for example, let's consider that this is an Excel sheet wherein you are having some usernames with their details mentioned, which are having age as well as their city of residence. And now let's take this basic example in our use case today to understand the pandas, how we can analyze this data, this basic data using pandas. We we can process age, we can add new columns according to this particular data, we can analyze how many users are belonging to which particular city so that we can accordingly set up our marketing strategies and trends accordingly as per our data. So we'll be loading an CS Excel file, which we will be processing today using pandas. Now, pandas use data frames to process data. And what are data frames? So data frame is nothing but it is a data structure in pandas which basically processes 2D data. 2D means data that has rows and columns. So as you know that Excel data is 2D data. It has rows and columns. And if we are not talking specifically about Excel, then you can take a look at this data object that has been defined, wherein you can see that there are multiple kind of data that has been defined. So we have defined 3 users with the name category. We have defined their age in the age category. We have defined the city of residence under city category. So this data is again a 2D data, and we have created this particular data frame here. We can create a data frame over this data, and then we can use that data frame further to process our like to basically process our insights and identify our meaningful insights out of that data. Now moving forward, so these are some of the steps that we are gonna do today. So these steps would basically are some basic steps wherein we would be performing some basic instructions of on our Excel sheet, and we are gonna see how uh, the these instructions basically pull data from the Excel sheet and showcase and how we are able to manipulate or analyze the data. Similarly, we have prepared some basic steps that we are going to follow. Then how to locate the data in a data frame. So let's say if we have an Excel sheet which is having thousands of rows, and then locating a particular data item within that 1,000 rows is a complicated task to do in a manual basis on a manual basis as well, and to programmatically as well. So we should know what is the right functions or what are the right method to locate that particular data item within such a uh, huge data set, or such a significant amount of rows that are there in the data set. So there are two methods available using lock and iLock. We can basically identify our data. And what is lock? So basically lock function is a method which allows you to search through your column name. Through basically, it basically helps you identify the value, identify the data item through the values. So this gives you that functionality to basically search. For example, if I have some data in my Excel sheet and I want to search where the name column is having an entry as Bob, I want to identify that particular row, and bring it to my output. So then I can use lock in this manner to basically pull out that particular data, wherein I'm using def, which is data frame, and in that particular data frame, I'm using lock, which is locate, and I am using name column. Locate name column within that particular data frame, wherein the value is Bob, and it will specifically pull out that particular row and present to me. Similarly, I'm finding out the age of the person, wherein you see the first index parameter is 0, which means that it is going to reference row 1, and then it has the other parameter as age. So it will pull out the age of the person whose entry is there on the row 1, and it will showcase to me. So we'll look at all of these practical aspects. So now this is iLock, and in iLog, we are gonna try the similar functions and see how this basically is gonna help pull the data for us and retrieve the data for us. So let's get back to the previous slides. But before I start off with the practical aspects of pandas, do unmute yourself if you have any queries before starting off. You want to clarify any specific item that I just explained, presented using this PPT. Do ask as many questions as possible so that when we move to the practical aspects, you are very much clear. Does anybody of you have any questions? Otherwise, give me a thumbs up, do +1. I will move to the practical aspects of pandas. Okay, thanks for confirming, Govin. So there are some tools that we must have uh, to basically run Python code or to basically help us simplify our coding efforts. So I am using one of the tools which is known as Visual Studio Code, which allows me to basically write the code, and it basically helps me run the code as well. I can use the code executor and the editor as well. So I will basically pull my program here. So as you can see, this is our program. This is the complete program that we reviewed on the PPT, wherein first of all, we need to import the pandas. What does this line mean? So this means that importing pandas, we are importing the library pandas, and once you have imported the library, then there are all the let's understand the library in a literal manner. So there are libraries, and what does a library contain? It contains all the books from various domains, um, encyclopedia and public affairs, general knowledge, uh, novels, fiction, non-fiction. It contains all those details of specific areas. So similarly, Pandas is a library which contains all the information, all the utilities, all the functions, all the methods that are required to specifically target any use case of data analysis or data manipulation. So Pandas contains all those utilities functions which can help you perform data analysis. So I am importing pandas as PD. That is a short abbreviation, like short term terminology that I'm giving for pandas, wherein I can reference PD wherever I want to use pandas. Now I am defining my input file. My input file is this particular Excel file, which is located in my folder. So if you'll see, I have my sample data Excel file, wherein you can see that it contains some details here. Uh, this is just a basic file wherein you can see that there is a serial number column. There is a column for the name of the user, then an age column, which is having an age for that respective user, and then the city of their residence. All right. Oh, sorry. Is my PPT only visible? Okay, I will have to share my screen again. But thanks for letting me know so that yeah. Now let me know if you are able to see my Excel sheet. Okay, cool. So in this Excel sheet, you can see that there I have some of the details available for some of the users along with their age and city of residence. So we can use these details as a basic data. We are not taking 1,000 rows of data because I believe that understanding fundamentals is more important. Once we have analyzed this data, we can move on to advanced use cases. All right. So this is our Excel data that we are gonna experiment on today. So now the code that I was showing is this particular code. So I'm using Visual Editor code, which has different functionalities. So here I am importing my pandas as PD, and then I've defined my input file, which is my sample data.excel file, which was having all of those 5 rows. Now, how can I read this file? Using pandas. So as you can see that I am using the pandas object here. I'm defining a variable df and I am referring to pandas dot read excel. So and then I'm passing this excel file value variable here. So what it does is that it helps, then here pandas is helping me read this excel file, and all the content, all the details of that Excel file in a row and column format would be stored in this particular data frame in the df variable. So this is what we call as a data frame. Now, what we can do here is, what we are doing here is we are presenting the data frame. Whatever values that we have read from this Excel sheet, we would be presenting on screen, and then we'll be looking at how does the Excel data look on the terminal. Then what are we gonna do is we are basically gonna uh, calculate the mean age of all the users that are present in our Excel sheet. So this is a kind of analysis that we are doing, that what is the mean age of all the users that are there in our Excel sheet. And then we are gonna print that mean age, average age. And after that, we are doing further analysis to identify how many of the users are young in age and how many of them are adult. So using this uh, calculation here, using this logic here, what we are doing is we are looking at the age column and we are checking if the age is 25, then create a new column which would be having this particular name, age category. And here there all the users who are below 25, categorize them into a category which is known as young, and otherwise if they don't fall into that category, then put them into the adult category. So right now, as you can see in our Excel sheet, we don't have that particular column here. So we don't have age category column here, but on running this Python code, we would have that analysis done, and then we would have that column available here, which would process these details and add the details accordingly here. And then we are gonna print the data again on the output screen. And what we are doing at the last is we are basically saving all of these analysis into an output file. And that would be known as modified sample data. We can also rename it as an output file. So let me rename it as output file.